All right, welcome everyone. Jennifer Elliott, Yin. We are still working on the superficial lines. So we started with the superficial back lines, then we did the superficial front lines, and then the lateral lines. So now we're going to sort of zip ourselves up through the front for the deep front lines. So we can think of this being the inner thighs and then kind of back bends, right? We're going to work up through the front body. So that'll be our work today. Welcome. And because we're going to move into those deep front lines, we'll start. I'm going to be a little bit elevated in my reclined butterfly, just to kind of get more of the front body as well. All right, so let's get started. Reclined butterfly. I've already set myself up here with, I like a little padding. I've got myself up on a little ramp, soles of the feet together. And of course, I'm using these blocks under the knees. But however you want to get into your pose. We're mainly going to be working sort of from the inner foot, inner thigh, and all the way up through the front side with those deep myofascial front lines. And we will be here for 4 minutes. All right. Settling in. We have been on this journey of working with the superficial lines, and they can run parallel to some of our meridian lines, but our meridian lines are deeper and they sort of affect the whole organ system. For the superficial lines, even though some might be deep, we're really focused more on the layers that are closest to the surface of the skin, the fascia, the muscle layers. And of course, we're still going to affect the internal layers just by the nature of our poses. But the fascia itself might be slightly more surface. Or we can say more kinetic and less energy in the way we might think of as the energy that moves through the chakras or the nadis. It's maybe a bit more physical kinetic energy. All right. Just joining, welcome. The way I like to think of the superficial lines is like we're making a doll. And so we started with sort of the back pleat of a doll, right? The superficial back line. You can imagine if you have that two-dimensional sort of cutout paper, or not paper, but like cloth doll, right? You do a little tug somewhere. It's going to affect other places on that whole back line. That's kind of the idea of the superficial back line. Something in your feet might affect your neck, right? Sort of that whole chain. So we have our back piece, and then we have our superficial front line, right? That doesn't really create a whole beam. We stitched them together on the side with our lateral lines, just like we're stitching together our two parts. And then today we're sort of giving ourselves legs and stitching right up through the center into those deep front lines. And then most likely tomorrow we'll do the arm lines just to round it out. We've got about a minute left here. I'm just removing my blocks since I've been here a little while, getting a little deeper into those inner lines. And really allowing the breath to get deeper, fuller, more relaxed. legs together, take a little rebound. So the other part from the myofascial core is the core itself, right? So we're going to affect the core through a twist. And I'm going to move my props out of my way. I'm going to do a deep twist, pulling the knees into the chest. What we might call a simple twist, even though I don't think it's all that simple. But any twist is fine. We're just going to be kind of working through that midline. Okay. We'll draw the knees in if you're coming with me, and then keep them close as you drop them over to the left side. And mainly here, we're just, if my knees are lower, that's going to bother the low back. So I'm going to pull the knees in. They're going to be the height of the hips or even up to that elbow, opening up the chest, or you've chosen your own twist. And we'll be here. I like to do twists for 3 minutes. We'll be here for 3. All right, yeah, and get creative and listen to your body. You might, some of you are already finding you might want to bolster under or between the knees. Or if you want straight legs, you can take those legs off to the side. You can feel how we're working sort of that deep front line in the abdominals. And we'll bring our connection to the breath. So the inhale is full. The chest expanding. Side ribs widening. And the exhale surrenders. Inhale, we create space, width with the breath. Exhale, we surrender into space and release. The halfway mark, so 90 seconds left. Make any changes that you need. Twenty seconds. To center. And the knees over to the other side. Again, everyone was in a slightly different version, so do the one that you did on side 1 if that was okay. Be here for 3 minutes. And our theme is the superficial lines. But our animal card today was butterfly. We'll obviously get in at least one butterfly pose in the practice. which works really well with our deep front lines. Our butterfly is about transformation. We can think of that beautiful butterfly, and it didn't start that way, right? It had a whole life, a whole journey before that transformation. And think about a butterfly before they transform, they go within, they break down, and they completely change things to become something new. And so what we want to remember about our butterfly transformation is that we're somewhere along that cycle. So you might be just at the beginning stage. You might be sort of cocooning and going within, kind of developing a new idea, a new aspect of yourself. You might be ready to emerge with this new characteristic or path. Or have you become what you've been working towards? But even if you feel like you're at the end of a cycle, it just begins a new one. So just appreciating where you are on that cycle. It's always going to come back around again. Maybe there's about 45 more seconds. Okay, so slowly come back to center. Take a moment to rebound. So you can set your feet down, let your knees knock in, or find that sort of centering. All right, so again, inner thighs, front body. We're going to affect the front body through a bridge pose. I'm going to grab my bolster because it's more comfortable, but if I wanted more intensity, I would grab my block because it goes a little higher. I usually do my more intense class right before, so sometimes in this class myself personally, I like to do a little less. So I'm grabbing the bolster. You might decide you want the block, you want to go a little higher. You can stay with just the bridge or the extended legs, but I find, especially when it's lower even, that I do a little better when I do one leg in. It feels better on the back, and then I actually get a little deeper kind of into the abdomen, especially if I float that other leg. So I'm going to do one leg. We'll do 3 minutes a leg, or if you're staying in bridge, then you will do 6 minutes total. All right. And here it goes. Finding our shape and then resolving to be still. Find the breath moving comfortably in and out through the nose. We'll breathe into a count of 4. And we'll breathe out to a count of 4. In for 4. Out for 4. Continue on your own. We're about at the halfway mark. And I notice even for myself, when I internally count, it's almost like the body is counting with me and creating more space on the inhale, but also releasing a little bit more on each exhale. See if you can use the breath to help create more space. Last couple breaths. Alright, so setting the foot down if you're doing one side, switching to the other side. And I don't know if you can feel it. It kind of helped me with doing the deep twist first, but then even kind of hovering the leg on this side. You might feel kind of this stretch deep into the abdomen. Even though we start with the superficial lines, right, being closer to the surface of the skin, now we're on these deep lines, and they're a little deeper within. It's the same thing, just like the superficial back line. You might have a dysfunction in the feet, and it affects the low back or the neck. Might have a dysfunction on the inner thighs, and that might affect pelvic floor, the core, even the neck. Think about when your foundation isn't stable, right? A house that was built on quicksand, it's gonna fall. You don't have a strong pelvic floor, you're gonna sort of feel all the organs shift a little bit, right? There's not that buoyant support for them. And so we're tapping into those really deep layers of tissue, of muscle, and just allowing them to become a little less bound. And a long muscle is a strong muscle, so sometimes we think knots are sort of shortened is tighter or stronger. We can imagine a bicep that was always, bent, flexed, and it wouldn't really be stronger because we need that action of flexion and extension. So same on those tissues in the abdomen, the inner thighs. We want them to release if they're bound or tight, so that they can move through their natural contraction relaxation phases. For about another minute. Last few breaths. Put your feet onto the floor. Take a moment just to pause in this transition. And then you can remove your prop, hips to the floor, leave them there, knees knock in. Just give yourself a moment of rebound. I feel that warmth or coolness at the lower back where we have new hydration. All right, so we're gonna roll up, moving into our inner thighs into frog or wide knee child's pose. You can also do malasana. And since I'm here, I'm just gonna kind of show malasana at the wall. If you want to keep your back flat, malasana at the wall is quite nice because you can just set your feet on the wall, the inner thighs kind of stretch. So that's an option to keep your back flat. Otherwise, we'll move into frog in the center of the mat or into wide knee child's pose, or of course, malasana. So for child's pose or frog, I like to put a blanket underneath. Option to have that bolster. And for frog, I have this blanket wider than the mat. So my knees are going to go about the width of the mat, maybe wider. Toes can go in or out. They'll let you know. And then you can lower. And I'm going to lower onto the bolster. This just gives me support for my lower back. And we'll be here for 4 minutes. So inner thighs are your focus. If you don't feel this is safe on your knees or your back, take that wide knee child's pose, or I give you lots of options that might serve you. And then we settle in. As we return to our idea of the butterfly. The butterfly is also about freedom, joyfulness, and playfulness. I feel like that's been coming up a lot in our animals. So really allowing yourself not to take yourself or others so seriously. How can you find that playfulness, that joyousness, or just the lightness of being, not weighing down so heavy, so dark? And the butterfly is connected to the element of air. The element of air is really connected to the relationship of the mind. It's the mind still and calm. Just like the air might be steady. Or there are a lot of chitta-vrittis, a lot of whirlings of the mind. I like to think of it like a tornado or sort of just a big gust of wind. It's a little less clear to see. When the mind is not calm, neither is the body, the emotions. Find that lightness of being, like you could float up on the air. And if there's chaos, there's whirling, twirling. See if you can't find the center, the calm, the eye of the storm. Things might be stressful or chaotic around you, but you have found your center, regardless of what else is going on. 90 seconds left. Forty seconds. If we were working the meridians, we could really say almost any meridian, because we have our kidney, our spleen, and our liver meridians all running through the inner thighs. Except for the arm lines or the heart and the lung meridians, we're pretty much getting most of our meridians through this lower body work. Okay, so move slow. We've been here a while, so take a rebound if you're in your malasana. You might take a forward fold. Those of us in frog, just kind of move slowly to center, or take your center pose of choice. And we're going to move into Sphinx or Seal, right? Because we want to continue to work the front body. And I did a bunch of twists in my previous class, so I feel pretty good to start kind of right up on this bolster in Sphinx, or I could move into Seal if I wanted. But explore. If you don't want to be in this pose, you could turn it over and take Mountain Brook, right? Kind of working the front body that way. Or I've seen some of you do like a supported bridge. Okay, we're here for 4 minutes as well. And just continuing to work that whole front line. Feel the breath rise and fall. And kind of think of that lightness of being, right? It's the breath kind of smooth and light. And at the top, there's almost that float before you move into your exhale. Your superficial front lines, again, are kind of the soles of the feet. You can think of the inner calves, the inner legs, the pelvic region that we're stretching all the way up kind of under the organs to the chest area. But then there's also a little bit of those deep front lines that go on the neck. If it makes sense, it doesn't always for me because I have a lot of arthritis in my neck. But you can lift the chest if you want to go a little bit in the front neck, or you can also compress that same area by letting the head go. Almost like a throat lock, Jalandhara Bandhala. Remember, nourishing an area is not only stretching it, sometimes it's compressing it, just like you would on a trigger point massage. Through that compression, we release any tension. Okay, we're halfway through. Make any changes you need. Straighten my arms here for seal. We'll see, I don't usually last that long. But it's nice to have a little variation. And letting the breath be the mover. So release, take a rebound. You might just sort of rest with your props as they are, if that's okay. All right. Now we have one last kind of back bendy pose. Not everyone will do it, so of course I'll give you options. So some of you will take saddle pose. So I'm sitting on my feet. It's different than hero. It's better on the knees and the back, but not for everyone, obviously, right? So I'm sitting on the feet. My knees are wider, like I was going into child's pose. And then I'm going to lean back and kind of rest on my props. It's not so much about the top legs, but more about kind of the belly area. This isn't for everyone. So if you're still okay with the back bend, you can go back into that Mountain Brook type pose that we talked about before. Right. We are going to child's pose next. So if you want to go there ahead of time, that's also fine. So whatever you'd like. So either go into that back bend or skip ahead to child's pose. But whatever you choose, we're here for 4 minutes. So back bend or skip ahead to a forward fold. All right, now we've done the twist, we've done the front body work, but it still may not mean that you feel this is right for your body, the knees, the low back. So when in doubt, you can always do legs up the wall, legs in the air, get off of the knees in the back all together. Find the breath. Sometimes to make this pose deeper, you're just kind of laying on your back, is to grab the elbows. Just kind of get a little deeper in the front line. I prefer it a little bit more on the bolster, but get that option. We're at the halfway mark. You can think of the back lines as maybe addressing what's behind us, what brought us to that point. The front lines might be where we're headed, what's in front of us, what we look forward to. The lateral lines, the side lines are more about being in the present, being content. And we can almost think of the deep front lines as a deeper way of moving from the lateral lines in, right? Moving to the inner lines, but into the core of the body. We're sort of pulling away from those superficial layers into those deep layers of being. And observing what's there. The core, that essence of who you are. 30 seconds. Move slow, especially if you're in this back bend. So you can use your elbows to lightly press yourself up. Take your time as you come to center. Maybe a little rebound in tabletop. Get off at the knees. And that might be plenty. Or, of course, you can rebound in down dog if that's too much on the wrists, and just come into child's pose. All right, and we're going to child's pose next, unless you've already done it or it's just not for your knees. So after child's pose, we're going to do butterfly and dragonfly. So inner thighs bent and then straight, but of course you can change the order depending on how you feel. Child's pose or any other forward fold. If you want this to be dangling so that your knees are happy, that's absolutely a great option. If you already did this, any other forward fold or move ahead to those butterflies. Sometimes when I take a public class, I would wish they would give options and allow people to make choices for their body. It's not about ego, but about really understanding what's best for them. Because in a group, we want to do what the group is doing. And so we might forget what's really right for us. We might sort of want to go along. Not every pose is good for everybody at every time. Maybe one pose is good for you, but at the beginning or the end of class. Or a pose is good, but not all the time. And so in yin, we go slow enough that we can really check in. There's no ego there. I'm not trying to get anywhere. There's no better or leveled up. It's just about being present and still and aware. 90 seconds in. Ninety seconds. Seconds left. All right, so slowly come out of your pose. We are going to move to butterfly and then dragonfly. So bent knee and straight leg. If you're over the bent knees, you want to go to the straight leg first or skip the butterfly, that's also fine. But since we're doing butterfly animal spirit, we gotta at least do, we started. We want to do another one maybe. Okay, so butterfly or your other version of inner thigh work. We'll stick with the 4 minutes. If knees bother, you can always put props under the knees. Sometimes that's really nice. Or the higher the hips, the less pressure on the knees. And sometimes that allows the hips to relax. So those are some other options as well. I'm going to try. I'm going to lift up a little higher, I think. What I've noticed actually for me, instead of folding forward for my own self, doesn't mean you have to do it this way. But for me, I almost enjoy sitting upright longer and really kind of letting gravity do. And those inner thighs, we've got our kidney, our spleen, our liver, meridians, all of those inner thighs. When kidneys are not balanced, we feel fear. When our spleen is not balanced, we feel anxiety. And when our liver's not balanced, we feel anger. That almost feels like they're just different gradients of kind of similar emotion, right? This fear, this apprehension, this reaction. And so what we're looking for in all those layers is our wisdom, our calm, and our compassion. The halfway mark. There's things we can't change, and we can change our attitude, our perception, our reaction. But we can't always change our physical body. If the range of motion isn't there, all the stretching in the world sometimes won't affect it. It's just sort of how the bones integrate, right? How they articulate. And since there's not the space, then you're not going to have that available range of motion. And so there's that acceptance, that compassion, as you are already in that perfect place for you, which may look very different than your neighbor, and that's fine. They're in their perfect place for them. 40 seconds. Slowly come out. We're going to do the straight leg version if you didn't already do that. My favorite is the wall, legs at the wall and kind of split. If you have that available for you. Do legs up the wall if you've already done your inner thigh work. But we'll do, most likely we'll do these straight legs of the deep front lines. and then legs of the wall are in the air. So those are the two poses I'm doing. If you need to change the order or add something different, please do. And we're here for 4 minutes. And I added this roll under the knees. It just feels better since I lock out my knees. And then I can give myself this nice support for the forehead. And the breath becomes a bit deeper. And maybe let the exhales be a little longer now. We're at the halfway point. Changes if you need. A minute. Slowly come out. And then we'll take our finishing pose. So legs in the air, legs up the wall. If those aren't for you, then take a finishing pose that intuitively just feels right. Maybe a meditation. And we'll end here. In our last 4 minutes. Thinking any other forward fold is also fine. All right. You made it into your final pose. And really, it's our final pose of this series. You can consider Shavasana a yin pose. But really throughout your day, there's things that you can do to sort of be in yin. You need to stand in line somewhere or sit and wait at the DMV, right? Or those places that feel like you want to get through that so you can get to the next thing you want to do. But make that your mindfulness, make that your meditation, make that your yin. Resolve to be still and present and alert. No one else would even know. About a minute in. Way there. Final minute. Slowly come out of your pose. And set yourself up either for Shavasana or for your seated meditation. This can be that good practice for being in yin. Let's pause before we enter our day. We'll be here 3 minutes. Shavasana, meditation, or anywhere you resolve to be still. Right? Back into the awareness of our surroundings. Subtle movements, maybe fingers, toes, blinking. And if you're on your back, make your way up to seated, just moving slowly to one side. And gently pressing up. Hands to your heart, a moment of gratitude for all the time you've put into you. Lift your chest, bow your head. Namaste. Thank you, yogis. I hope you have a great evening. I'll stay on if you want to chat. Bye.